Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to break down how Mikel Arteta won the tactical battle of the back three over Frank Lampard to help Arsenal win the FA Cup. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have both sides in a 3-4-3. And in today's video, we're going to look at the tactical themes that helped Mikel Arteta get by this Chelsea side. First, we'll look at Arsenal's pressing. They pressed as we expected with the front three closing down Chelsea's back three. The wing-backs pushing towards Reece James and Marcus Alonso. And then you had Dani Ceballos and Xhaka stepping into the path of Jorginho and Kovacic. And while Chelsea did press in a similar manner, Arsenal's pressing was more aggressive, and the aim was to ensure that Chelsea couldn't build out of the back. They didn't want Jorginho or Kovacic on the ball, and they didn't want the wing-backs to be outlets to push forward. So throughout that first half, we saw Arsenal successfully pressing from goal kicks, ensuring that Chelsea couldn't build from the left-hand side through Marcus Alonso or through the right-hand side through Reece James. And there were also times where even when Kovacic was dropping deeper into his own half to get on the ball, we saw Dani Ceballos pushing forward. Xhaka was consistently harrying Jorginho when he tried to get on the ball. And there were even times where we saw the center backs such as Zuma getting caught on the ball and forced to play it wide, or Azpilicueta forced to play long balls over the top. The reason why Mikel Arteta was insisting on pressing from the front on a consistent basis was because the movement of Mount and Pulisic was predictable. What we saw from Chelsea was that they looked to push the wing-backs into those advanced positions, and that allowed Mason Mount to drift into central areas in behind Dani Ceballos and Granit Xhaka, whereas Pulisic was looking to drop off holding to get on the ball and then dribble towards goal. The other issue would be if Arsenal's pressing does drop off, then that does allow Jorginho and Kovacic time to get on the ball. And if you don't have Holding and Tierney dropping off to track the movement of Pulisic and Mount, if they receive the ball between the lines or in pockets of space, then they're free to run at the Arsenal backline. It was Jorginho this time splitting Ceballos and Granit Xhaka to find Pulisic once again between the lines. And in that play, you also see Mason Mount from a central position making that darting run in between Bellerin and Holding, and his deflected cross fell into the path of Giroud, who combined with Pulisic, which ultimately led to Chelsea's opening goal. If we look at the combined movement of Pulisic and Mount, there was a time where Alonso won a 50-50 ball with Ceballos, and what he ended up seeing in front of him was Pulisic making a darting run in between Bellerin and Holding, and when Mount received the ball in left half space, it resulted in Jorginho wasting an opportunity from the edge of the box. What you ended up seeing from Arsenal, though, was that they had a clear route to goal, and Arteta specifically targeted Chelsea's right-hand side. What we ended up seeing was that when Tierney would get on the ball or if David Luiz was free to push forward, you would have Maitland-Niles dropping off a bit narrow to pull out Reece James. And you would also see Lacazette drop off deeper to pull out Zuma. That leaves a huge gap in that left channel. And what we ended up seeing was that Aubameyang consistently attempted to spin around Azpilicueta to break him beyond that Chelsea backline. There was ultimately variations of those moves where we ended up seeing sometimes Aubameyang dropping off a bit deeper, and that's when you would have Maitland-Niles running across Reece James to break in behind. Arteta's tactics were clear in those opening 2 minutes, where you ended up having Tierney closed down by Mount, and you ended up seeing James get tight on Maitland-Niles, but with Lacazette and Aubameyang dropping off deeper to drag out their markers, it was Maitland-Niles spinning off James and ultimately forcing Azpilicueta to break into that zone. He was able to beat Azpilicueta, and that left Aubameyang free to dart in between Rudiger and Zuma shifting over, and the combination between Maitland-Niles and Aubameyang should have put Arsenal ahead. While David Luiz did have time to push forward because Giroud wasn't getting tight on him, his long balls into Maitland-Niles and Aubameyang were a bit wayward. When we look to Arsenal's equalizer, it's Mount pressing Tierney, and you see Maitland-Niles shifting to the touchline to drag out James. So when Tierney clips that ball over the top, this time you see Aubameyang getting the better of Azpilicueta, and he breaks into that Chelsea box before Azpilicueta takes him down for the penalty that he eventually converts. And even following Azpilicueta's departure, which saw Zuma shift to right center back and Christensen move into into the middle. Once again, it was Tierney and Maitland-Niles pulling out Mount and James, and a Tierney long ball into the path of Aubameyang, but this time Willy Caballero was off his line to ensure that Aubameyang couldn't put Arsenal ahead. So we did see a brief revival from Chelsea in that second half as they looked to go a bit longer. And in the earlier stages, it was Rudiger clipping the ball over Pepe into the path of Giroud ahead of David Luiz, and he ended up playing it into the path of Pulisic ahead of Holding. You had Mount running across Tierney, but Pulisic was able to beat Holding 1v1 in that left channel and break towards goal. But as Xhaka came across, Pulisic rushed his shot, and he ended up pulling his hamstring and dragging a shot inches wide of the net. Ultimately, Chelsea struggled to get into good attacking zones despite the good movement of Mason Mount in that second half, but they also dropped off deeper into that narrow 5-4-1, and with Jorginho and Kovacic looking to receive the ball in deeper positions away from pressure, what you ended up seeing was that Arsenal did a very good job in those wider areas of ensuring that Chelsea couldn't push forward. Out on that left-hand side, we saw Aubameyang dropping off Zuma and providing additional cover for Maitland-Niles against James, and then helping out Tierney against Mason Mount. And over on that right-hand side, with Kovacic dropping off a bit deeper, Ceballos was able to keep his positioning within close proximity of Xhaka. He was shifting over to help out Bellerin, and if Kovacic looked to provide penetration and clip long balls over the top, you ended up seeing Ceballos tracking the movement of Mason Mount and then helping out Holding to ensure that Marcus Alonso couldn't provide a threat at the byline. But when you look to Arsenal, Ceballos and Granit Xhaka were getting time on the ball to play positive passes, but it was in transition where they hurt that Chelsea side as they pushed the wingbacks and Jorginho and Kovacic forward. It was Pepe's pressing that forced Rudiger into a mistake, combined with Lacazette's movement across Zuma and Christensen, and that ended up seeing Aubameyang free in that left half space, and Lacazette was able to pick him out, but with Aubameyang looking to cut central, Christensen was able to block his shot. And then when you look to Arsenal's winning goal, it's Bellerin breaking through that midfield zone beyond Kovacic and Jorginho, who are once again caught higher up the pitch. And with Rudiger stepping out, Bellerin's able to poke the ball beyond him, and Christensen's last-ditch tackle ends up seeing the ball fall into the path of Pepe, who dribbles across Alonso. Once again, it's Lacazette's movement that pulls out Zuma, and that creates an avenue for Aubameyang breaking freely in towards that box. When the ball is slid out to Aubameyang, this time rather than cutting central like he did against Christensen, he ended up catching Zuma flat-footed and cutting towards the outside before chipping Willy Caballero. But as you could see here, Mikel Arteta won the tactical battle in another high-profile game. Although Chelsea did create chances through the movement of Pulisic and Mason Mount, it was Arteta's well-designed plan that ended up seeing the movement of Maitland-Niles and Aubameyang consistently bypass that Chelsea press, and they exploited Azpilicueta. They were able to win a penalty from those moves, and in that second half, they dropped off a bit deeper, neutralized Chelsea's attack, and with Chelsea pushing men forward, he was able to rely on his swift counter-attacking players in Nicolas, Pepe, the movement of Lacazette, and his high-profile striker Aubameyang once again being reliable to ensure that Arsenal won the FA Cup. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the Interview show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.